One night that seemed utterly ordinary, or perhaps extraordinary precisely because you finally paid attention, you sat alone in a quiet room. The lights were dim, the air felt heavy, and the outside world slowly sank into silence. Nothing tragic had happened. No great event had shaken your life. Yet somehow your mind felt unbearably loud. Like an old radio that keeps playing even when no one is tuning it. Like a fine rain that keeps falling from the sky without pause. You think about things you don't need to think about, replay small moments, imagine future scenarios, and repeat conversations that may never happen. Often you ask yourself why your mind won't stay still. You feel exhausted, not by the world, but by your own head. At that point, you might call it overthinking, a modern word for a restlessness you don't fully understand. But if you look deeper, maybe your mind is trying to tell you something you've ignored for a long time. Overthinking is not merely a mental disturbance or a bad habit. It is a doorway, a small crack through which light tries to enter. As Alan Watts often explained, when the mind appears chaotic, it is not a sign of weakness, but a sign that you are beginning to notice the distance between you and your thoughts. Humans are used to living on autopilot, trapped in routines and inherited identities. But when you start questioning your own life, even through anxiety and doubt, it means your awareness is growing. Overthinking is your soul's first call, an invitation to see something that has been hidden. Your mind isn't broken. You are learning to separate the voice of the ego from the voice of your true self. Like water in a pond being stirred, it becomes cloudy not because it is dirty, but because the bottom that has been still for so long is finally being revealed. Spiritual awakening is not a strange or mystical concept. It is not a dramatic experience reserved for saints or seekers. Awakening is the moment you realize you are not your thoughts. You are not the emotions that pass through you. You're not the story you replay in your head. You're not the identity you think you must uphold. Awakening is the moment you stop taking your thoughts as absolute truth. Overthinking is the earliest symptom, because the more aware you become, the more you notice how much of your life has been unfolding without your awareness. When you no longer feel comfortable with your old world, when you sense something has changed even though you can't name it, that is not malfunction. It is growth. Your mind resists because it knows you are paying attention. It fears losing its power. Awakening is a process of losing, not gaining. You do not become someone. You stop pretending to be someone. Awakening always begins with the loss of the old identity. The identity you built over the years, shaped by opinions, trauma, education, family, and experience, begins to crack. You no longer fit your own mask. The things you once defended fiercely now feel foreign. You feel as though you're shedding an old skin without yet having a new one. Overthinking intensifies because your old identity struggles not to die. Who am I if not my role? Becomes the question echoing deep inside you, but you know, faintly, that you are not that role. You are not a title, not a label, not the expectations of others. The old identity is a fragile construction you mistook for yourself. Now it begins to collapse. Then you begin to lose unconsciousness. For years you lived without truly paying attention. You acted, reacted, felt, and thought without knowing why. Awakening makes you see everything. You begin to notice patterns you never saw before. You begin to realize why you do certain things, why you fear certain things, why you feel drawn to others. You become the observer of yourself. It feels strange, as though there are two versions of you, one who lives, one who watches. They are not enemies, but one is far older than the other. When awareness appears, something in you is gone forever. The old blindness. You cannot return to automatic living, and that is both frightening and liberating. Then you begin to lose the illusion of ego. The ego is not the enemy. It is merely a defense mechanism trying to keep you safe. But the ego is always afraid. It is built from the past and projects into the future. It never lives in the present. The ego wants you to believe you must become someone, achieve something, be seen. It loves overthinking because that is where it lives. Awakening shows you that the voice in your head is not you. It is the echo of stored experiences. When you see that illusion, the ego feels threatened. It makes you overthink harder, more chaotically, because it fears disappearing. But over time, you see more clearly that the ego is not the center of you. It is a role you can release. Then you lose the need for validation. As you grow, you realize your life does not need to be justified to anyone. You may have lived for the opinions of others, family, partners, friends, society. You became the version of yourself that people liked, not the version that was real. Awakening forces you to ask the difficult question, why do I care what others think? That question shatters the foundation of the ego. You no longer force yourself to appear good. You no longer chase approval. Overthinking begins to ease because much of overthinking is driven by fear of judgment. When you stop caring about judgment, your mind loses its reason to be loud. Then comes the loss of the fear of death. Alan Watts often explained that the fear of death is ultimately the fear of losing control. Awakening shows you that life was never truly under your control. You're part of a larger process, like waves rising and falling. You begin to see that death is not an ending, but a transition. This is not a religious belief, but an intuitive understanding that nothing is ever truly lost. Everything changes form. When you accept that life is a dance between arriving and departing, between birth and death, your fear begins to fade. Overthinking weakens too, because much of anxiety is rooted in fear of losing. Then you lose attachment to objects, people, status, ideas, expectations, even your ideal self. Awakening teaches that all attachment creates suffering because everything is impermanent. When you release attachment, you lose nothing. You simply stop trying to hold water in your hands. Your hands finally open, and in that openness there is peace. You learn to experience life instead of trying to possess it. You also lose the drive for external searching. You once sought meaning outside yourself, books, teachers, partners, ambitions, achievements. Awakening shows you that everything you seek has been inside you from the beginning. You cannot find something outside if you have not found it within. Overthinking softens when the search ends because the mind loses its job as a detective. You begin to understand not through analysis, but through presence. Then you lose the human drama. When you see that people are trapped in their own stories, you stop wanting to participate in unnecessary conflict. You realize that most drama is simply the ego feeling important. You choose silence over explanation, walking away over proving yourself, peace over winning. The world may think you've changed, but you have simply stopped participating in a play that no longer matters. Then you lose the illusion of time. You understand that the past is only memory, the future only imagination. The only real moment is now. Overthinking arises when you live outside the present. Awakening brings you back to your breath, your body, your awareness. You feel life not as a straight line, but as a moment continuously unfolding. You stop rushing because you realize there is nowhere else you need to be. Then you lose the need to be somebody. This is the greatest loss. The ego wants you to be important, impressive, admired, remembered. Awakening shows you that being yourself is more freeing than becoming the person the world expects. You stop forcing yourself to meet certain standards. You stop proving anything. When you release the need to be somebody, you finally become yourself. Then you reach a point of no return, a moment when what you have realized can no longer be forgotten, a moment when you can no longer live in the old unconsciousness. It feels like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing you have no choice but to jump, not into death, but into presence. You feel strange, yet free. different, yet whole. Overthinking stops being an enemy. It becomes a signpost. You begin to understand that your mind does not need to be fought. It only needs to be heard and released. In the end, you realize that spiritual awakening is not about becoming better, stronger, or wiser. Awakening is about seeing reality as it is, about accepting that life has no instruction manual, about allowing yourself to be part of a cosmic flow greater than your understanding. When your mind is loud, it is not a sign of failure, but a sign that a part of you wants to come home. Overthinking is not the obstacle, it is the doorway. Awakening is the journey back to your original self, to the quiet awareness behind every thought. And when you sit back again in that same room, under the same dim light, with the same world still turning outside, you know something you didn't know before. You're not breaking. You are transforming. The change is not always comfortable, but it is incredibly real. Your mind is no longer frightening, it is just a wave. You are not the wave, you are the ocean that holds it all. When you begin to realize that life is no longer what it used to be, you may feel alone, not in loneliness, but in being separate from the common way of thinking. You see that most people simply live as a repetition of old habits, running without knowing where they are going, chasing without understanding what they chase. But you are different. You begin to sense something subtle yet powerful, pulling you out of that collective current. It is not rejection of the world, but a new understanding that you are no longer part of that game. You stand at the riverbank and realize you don't have to be swept away. You can stand here, observe, understand, and choose how you want to move. At this point, the old world feels too small. Shallow conversations lose their appeal. Old desires feel like clothes that no longer fit. You can no longer enjoy the drama you once found important. You're no longer mesmerized by arguments, competition, or proving yourself. You see them all as shadows of an endless human play. And instead of becoming cold or detached, you become more compassionate because you see people trapped in their patterns without realizing it. You know how it feels because you were once there. Sometimes you feel strange because you no longer get angry at things that used to upset you. You no longer react as quickly. You let the world pass without holding every detail. When someone tries to provoke you, you feel distance. You see their intentions, fears, ego, and you choose not to engage. You choose peace not because you are weak, but because you understand. And understanding changes you. You also begin to feel that life has a rhythm you never noticed before. Every moment is part of a vast melody flowing endlessly. You realize you don't have to dominate life or control outcomes. All you need is to be present and feel the rhythm. Sometimes it is fast, sometimes slow, sometimes gentle, sometimes turbulent. But you stop resisting. You begin to dance with it. This is one of the subtlest signs of awakening, when you stop fighting life and start dancing with it. There are days when you feel so calm, as if life pulls back the curtain and reveals its inner structure. On those days, you feel everything is connected. You feel a boundless presence surrounding your life. You feel a silence that is not emptiness. You feel a closeness to something indescribable. You realize life is a dialogue, not a monologue. You're not a spectator, you're part of the entire performance. And life speaks through small things, the footsteps of a stranger, a passing breeze, a bird's call, or the silence between two breaths. But awakening is not only about peace, it also brings emptiness. Not a bad emptiness, but space. Space to see, space to understand, space to be. But because you are so used to mental noise, the emptiness feels frightening at first. You feel like you're losing your grip, like you have nowhere to return to. Everything you used to rely on has collapsed, leaving only yourself, bare, without story, without identity. Many people fear this, but it is a golden moment, the birth of your true self. You are not losing meaning, you're clearing the room so that true meaning can enter. In that silence, you begin to understand something important. The self you have been searching for is not something to create. It is something to discover. And discovery does not happen through the mind, but through awareness. You begin to understand that every thought is just a cloud, and you are the sky. No matter how dark or bright the clouds are, the sky remains vast. Thoughts come and go, but awareness remains. This is the point where overthinking loses its power. Not because it stops appearing, but because you stop believing it blindly. You see thoughts as thoughts, not as reality. From that point on, you begin walking through life differently, without a sword, without a shield, without the need to fight. When something hurts you, you no longer say, "Why is this happening to me?" But, "What is this trying to show me?" Every emotion becomes a teacher. Every failure becomes a doorway. Every loss becomes an invitation to look deeper. You begin to understand that life never fights you. Life is always speaking. But before, you were too busy fighting your mind to hear it. People may not understand your change. They may see you becoming calmer, clearer, quieter. They may think you are distancing yourself, when in truth you are simply coming home to yourself. You no longer want to be in crowds that have no meaning. You no longer want to engage in dishonest conversations. You no longer want to be around energy that drains you. You begin choosing gently what you allow into your life, because you realize your awareness is sacred space not everyone should enter. And slowly, you begin to find yourself in the quiet. You discover that you are not a broken creature, not a defeated soul, not a failed human being. You are consciousness awakening. Awakening is not a journey outward but inward, toward the core of yourself that has long been covered by layers of fear, trauma, expectations, norms, and ego. Those layers slowly peel away, freeing you from within. At this stage, you may feel something very subtle, yet very real, that you no longer resist life. You begin to accept everything as part of your experience. You don't need life to be perfect. You just want to be fully present in it. You begin to see beauty even in imperfection. Not because you are naive, but because you see that everything has its place in the grand dance of existence. And the most surprising part is that you begin to love yourself, not in an egoistic or narcissistic way, but gently and honestly. You love your weaknesses, your fears, your vulnerability. You love the parts of yourself you once hid. You begin to understand that you are a process, not a project. You are a journey, not a destination. And finally, when you sit again, maybe still in the same room, under the same dim light, with the world outside still turning as always, you realize something deeply profound. That this whole journey, overthinking, restlessness, confusion, loss, was life calling you home. Awakening is not a gift that comes from outside. Awakening is an answer from within, an answer that appears when you finally stop running from yourself. You no longer ask, "What's wrong with me?" Now you ask, "What is life trying to show me today?" And with that question, your journey changes forever.